What I find so fascinating about the Catholic Church is that you can think you know one thing one day, and the next day you get information which is completely contradictory. Uh, Today there's a doctor who's come out with a story about being called to the Vatican at 5:20, I think, in the morning, and finding that the Pope was already in a coma, and yet on Monday, I think we were told by the Camerlengo that the Pope got up against advice. He set his alarm clock for 6 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock he had a stroke, and at 7:30 he was dead. So you've got these two contradictory stories, uh, and then you've got this story which is coming out today and in the Times about um, the prefect of the former prefect of the Congregation of Faith, Cardinal Muller, um, and the concerns about an impending schism in the Catholic Church between the conservative wings, represented perhaps by the southern countries, Africa, South America, some of South America, but particularly Africa, and the more liberal traditions represented by the Vatican II progress from the 1960s, and very much represented by North America, by the Europeans, and so on. The Catholic Church, with its 1.4 billion faithful, is facing what may therefore be its most profound crisis since the Reformation. With the death of Pope Francis, the coming conclave brings not only the hope of a new shepherd, but also the very real threat of schism. And at the centre of this tension is the deep ideological chasm between reform and tradition, a conflict no longer confined to theology, but one that spans politics, morality, culture, even social media. And Cardinal Muller, this former prefect of the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, has sounded the alarm, and unless the next pope is doctrinally orthodox, Muller believes the Church risks splitting into multiple factions, each claiming legitimacy. There already is a schismatic church, the Palmarian Church, with its own pope and very impressive ceremony. And Muller has said the question is not between conservatives and liberals, but between orthodoxy and heresy. And he's publicly condemned Pope Francis' decision to bless same-sex couples and so-called synod on synodality, warning that it could destroy the Catholic Church as we know it. I think he's absolutely wrong. The blessing somebody is about conferring the grace of God and effectively the medicine of divinity. It's not the people who are well who need that medicine. It's those who are in need of support, those who may not be well, and who may be feeling marginalised. I think Francis is quite right to bless same-sex couples and to call for for communion for divorcees. The Cardinal Muller doesn't speak lightly. He's simply objecting. He's not simply objecting to tone or to style. He's accusing the Vatican under Francis of drifting into theological error. And this is not a rebellion against papal authority per se. Muller insists Catholics are not bound to follow doctrines that contradict scripture and tradition, and in his view, a pope must be the guardian of revelation, not its editor. And should Muller's prediction unfold, we're likely to see the emergence of three distinct churches. The German-led modernist church, likely backed by a large number of European bishops, advocating same-sex blessings, married priests, a more inclusive globalist ethos, but critics warn it's becoming merely a moral NGO with mitres. The traditionalist church, centred around the Society of St. Pius X, SSPX, which rejects post-Vatican II reforms and holds tight to the Tridentine liturgy. This group, if unmoderated, risks forming a Western equivalent of Eastern Orthodoxy, separate, dogmatic, and immovable, with a different liturgy. And the future Catholic Church, as Muller and others hope, will emerge from this chaos, a smaller, perhaps more pure church, more doctrinally pure, the AK Church, it would be carried by bishops in the global south, particularly in Africa and Asia, where Catholicism is growing in the middle of persecution and poverty. Who will lead this future church? Conservative eyes are turning to Cardinal Robert Sarah, the cardinal from Guinea, with an austere faith, a thunderous criticism of Western secularism, but his views on migration and Islam have provoked discomfort in the Curia and in Western media alike. The conclave, unlike any before it, is being shaped in part, therefore, by social media influencers, betting markets, and global politics. From African hubs to Catholic Twitter feeds, momentum is being manufactured for figures like Sarah and Hungary's Cardinal Edo, theologically firm and politically wary of the progressive tide. Yet nearly 80% of voting cardinals were appointed by Francis, and this suggests statistically a continuation of his legacy, unless general congregation meetings shift the tide. But many of these cardinals were chosen for their loyalty, not necessarily their doctrinal clarity. And behind the veil of religious debate lies a deep cultural war. Francis's critics see him as embracing the applause of the world, from climate activists to immigration NGOs. His defenders see a Christ-like pope embracing the outcast, scandalizing the self-righteous. And in the balance hangs the unity of the global church. What comes next may well echo the trauma of the 16th century Reformation or the 11th century East-West Schism. But history teaches us that something vital. The church doesn't die. It fractures, it reforms, it contracts, it grows. And in every age of a rupture, it has rediscovered its apostolic roots, often through suffering. And so Francis, despite his critics, confronted clerical abuse, challenged legalism, opened doors to dialogue. Yet he also centralized power, fostered ambiguity, and alienated millions who sought more clarity. His successor must now reconcile truth with charity, doctrine with mission, and a church that abandons truth for popularity will crumble. But a church that clings to doctrine without mercy will calcify. The next pope must walk this tightrope with grace, with conviction and prayer. And where the schism is a threat or a refining fire, the choice before the conclave is stark: preserve the visible unity of Rome, or watch it dissolve into rival altars and competing popes.